I have our YouTube channel
And
open on
now
my
it's
thing. Let me.
working.
Oh, okay.
That's strange. Well, here it do be. Here we do be again, and
Here
I am
we.
here this time, and I'm gonna make sure that I can be heard by
Yeah.
watching my own stream and then not just listening to the sound of your voice and going, "Oh yeah, no, we're totally fine."
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Goodness gracious! All right, so live now. Oh yeah, no, we're totally fine.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just verified.
Okay.
I can hear you. I can hear
Perfect.
you.
I can hear me. Okay, so
Let me.
Campfire Squadron. That's the thing we're doing. Loosey goosey
Yeah.
show. Focusing on things that we enjoy, like all the Star Wars shows. We've got the Rings of Power trailer that aired during the Super Bowl yesterday. We're gonna talk about that. Talk about
I'm
Book of Boba
gonna.
season finale.
Hold on. I'm gonna get this posted on Instagram. Maybe someone will
Do
stop by.
it. Do it. Oh, and we need to connect the Twitter to it too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Why
For
is my
sure.
thing lagging so much?
I can't wait to. Man, I really see this. The thing I'm looking forward to, like for engagement, isn't. Um, it's not like, you know, getting people, building the channel. Really, it's getting to argue with people about this stupid idea that, like, the Lord of the Rings going woke is going to be this terrible, horrible thing. Because
Yeah.
that's what all the videos I see are about. Woke trash. What's this one say? It says the vandalization of Tolkien. Like, who the fuck are you? Oh boy, that kind of stuff.
But I
I
can
just
add
like
links
to.
to
I
the
just want to fart. Like not fart. Wow, I want to fight with people.
thing. All right.
All right.
Let me.
So, Book of Boba Fett. How'd that go for you, man?
All right. Book of Boba Fett. So when I don't know. So I think the first two episodes were probably the best as far as like some backstory. I like the what are they calling them? The flashbacks. The
Yeah.
flashbacks whenever he's in the back to tanks.
Yep.
So the flashbacks were legit. I think that was a very smart way to kind of give some story. It made me wonder if they're gonna do that with Vader and Kenobi when he's in his back to tank. If he like has his flashbacks, I think they do. I think they do that in the comics where he's that's when he has his flashbacks is when he's in his back to tank,
Mm.
like healing every night. So that would be cool to see. Just a burnt Anakin flashing back to like Mustafar or something. So um, but it was okay. I think they definitely changed, not changed the character, but they definitely because there was no character to change off of out unless you're looking at comic books. But
Mm-hmm.
from of like a live action standpoint, they didn't really change anything. They just decided they just wrote him a certain way. So I think the way they chose to write him was interesting. Um, they definitely made him. They definitely made him more complex as a character, but I feel like they missed the mark as far as like making him like I feel like the transition was really abrupt. They didn't really show
Mm.
like a lot of time of him as a savage, like that savage Boba Fett that killed for the Empire. We had the one scene in Mando season two, and then we
Yeah.
had like a couple little moments, and then like the final episode. But for the most part, he was pretty mellow the entire time. I think he definitely talked too much. Like that took away his kind of like he could still be a changed, reformed person, but still be stoic. I think that's one thing people liked about Boba Fett that he was super like quiet and kind of stood
Yeah.
back and like analyzing everything. You know what I mean? So I think it's interesting that that was they made him have a big dialogue. Um, I think if he would have made it more like where he spoke through Fennec and Fennec did a lot of it because she's a fantastic actress, and then
Oh
she
yeah.
kind of, you know what I mean. I think that would have been a much better dynamic to where when he spoke, it like meant something. There's like weight behind it. Like, oh, everybody be quiet.
Yeah.
Bubba's talking. You know what I mean? Because he's
Mm-hmm.
got a good voice. So I don't know. I think that was kind of my big thing. And then I think the way that they just made him like he should have just been more badass like throughout the town. Like he was kind of like he didn't really do anything. He just kind of walked around, talked to people. Like I think when he had that altercation with the water or the moisture seller guy,
Mm-hmm.
like he definitely should have been harsher on either the the little Vespa scooter people that were talking back to him, and
Mm-hmm.
or the water guy. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if you would have just like gave him the 500 credits or whatever, and then just strung him up and been like, cut yourself down. You know what I mean? Here's your
Yeah.
500 credits, and then cut yourself down. Like
Yeah.
he strings him up on like a post, and then drops the credits below his head and is like, cut yourself down and grab your credits. You know what I mean? Like something like just like something kind of like to establish his dominance. I think would have been cool.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, I mean Mando and Luke and Ahsoka and Grogu, they just stole the show. As soon as they had those episodes, it was like, oh, this is what I want to watch. Boba's cool, but these guys are way cooler. You know, and I think
Yeah.
like Mando has that, like he has that stoicness where he's like he when he speaks, you're listening to hear what he says because he doesn't talk a whole lot. He does talk, but
Yeah.
his
Well, and
dialogue,
I.
his dialogue is very
Yeah.
intentional. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's
Uh,
probably why they actually steered away from that with Boba, just as a reactionary element during the writing. Hey, people didn't like how little dialogue there is, or maybe they didn't like this or that, or we don't want them to just think that Boba Fett's a carbon copy of Din Djarin, and
I mean,
so.
if
Which would suck
yeah,
if that's the case, because you never want to. That's what happened with Last Jedi and
yeah.
Rise of
I mean,
Skywalkers.
I
Is
would
that
I
same
would
with
argue
that? But
yeah, I would argue Din Djarin is a copy ripoff of Boba Fett from like the Legends and comics.
yeah, oh yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like
but like
it's almost
that's
like they tried to sell like it's like they wanted to make a Boba Fett show and they're like, nah, and they're like,
yeah,
okay, let's just make a show about a random Mandalorian and it's basically Boba Fett.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And then by the time the show like, oh wow, this show does really well, let's introduce Boba Fett. It's like, well, you kind of just took his character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
It's
the
like,
Mandalorians overall are supposed to be kind of like this in general, but
hmm
but of course we tell stories through characters, and so we don't want to feel, like we're being repetitive,
right.
and there is some element to that. It was I like the season overall. I actually like the interludes and things like that. But honestly, my issues with Boba's character is mainly that the things he's trying to do, you don't know why he's trying to do them, and he's not
Yeah.
really doing them well at all. I read an article today. I cannot remember where it was posted. I'll have to find it again, but it was basically arguing that if you accept that Boba Fett is just a villain in this season, that it's actually a much better show. Like it's much more. But the kind of villain they paint him as is a little bit more like he's less like the Don Corleone, from The Godfather, and
hmm
he's a little bit more like the upstart who's trying to make a name for himself in the crime game but doesn't really know what the hell he's doing. I mean,
Yeah.
he fires off half these plans with like 4 personnel under his belt.
Yeah, I
He
know.
gets
It's
his
funny.
like
They got Mando and Grishanton, and they're like, all right, now we've got enough muscle to take over the
yeah, it's
town.
like
Like
what?
you have two people.
Yeah, it's and like I get they each count for whatever,
Yeah,
but like
yeah, for sure.
Jabba ran a crime organization, and by the
Yeah,
time Boba Fett gets his hands on it, it doesn't feel like there's anything left. So it's like,
yeah,
why would anybody give a shit what he's trying to do?
yeah. I think for me, with one of the tough things was like I just didn't buy his like his intentions. It's like he gets raised by Tuscans, Tuscans get murdered, and now he's like, you know what? I'm gonna run the crime family. Like what? That doesn't connect to me. Like I think if he's seeking out vengeance, like
Mm-hmm.
that would be like a more of John Wick story. I think that would make more sense. But like the correlation between his Tuscan tribe, like him being humanized and figuring out that you need family or friends to be stronger, and that linking that to be like, I need to take over Jabba the Hutt and rule over most Espa. It's like that doesn't that wouldn't lead me like if I was that would not lead me to that conclusion. I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna take over the biggest crime family this side of the Outer Rim. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
like that just didn't make sense. Like I just didn't understand the justification there. And then he had like that one throwaway line, right? Where that was like something along the lines of well, he had the one where Jabba ruled with fear, I'm gonna rule with respect. I was like, okay, that's nice, sketchy.
but then he
But
doesn't give
then
anyone a reason to respect him.
yeah, exactly. Well, he's kind of like fumbling through the whole time. He's
Yeah,
like figuring
exactly.
out
It's
like
like,
he
I
was
mean,
like, should I be ruthless or it's like, well, I guess I don't have any henchmen. All right, let me get these. Let me get these like
let me get
way
two
too.
henchmen. We'll start with two henchmen. Yeah,
Yeah, I
we'll
think he
see
had
how
four. I
they
think
do.
I think he had four Vespa people.
Yeah, but
But
they're Vespa people. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know, man. And then honestly, the final episode was just like, meh. It's like boring. I felt like it was like the episode you get like it's like the third before the last episode. Like you have like the mini like a little mini action sequence, like it's
Little,
like almost
yeah.
like a false climax, and then it goes
Mm-hmm.
into the episode before the finale where they do like a regroup and rebuild up,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody's kind of like beat and trying to figure it out, and then the final episode is like this big grand event. And I just feel like the last episode wasn't really that. It just felt like I was like, okay, cool. He's riding a Rancor. That looks badass. I'm down with it. That was a cool sequence. You know, Mando, him and Mando have that like little gunslinger, Alamo Last Stand type of vibe, which was cool, and that was like a cool little sequence as well. But then you're kind of just like, all right, like, like it just felt like it took forever. Like it was just like the longest like little street fight that just lasted for like 45 minutes, and I was like, dude,
Yeah, how long did
there's
those
no...
civilians get chased in a straight line by those robots and then not die?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and again, and I'm not even like I'm super into the suspension of disbelief and whatnot. Like that's a critical element of things like sci-fi. But like, but they got to play by their own rules, you know.
hmm
And it's just like it felt so gamified at that point. Like they really couldn't think of things to fill the time with, and so they're like, all right, well, let's just make that 30-second gunfight. It's a 30-second gunfight because they brought 6 people, you know, but we're gonna make it half an hour long, and then we're just gonna end with a Rancor finale. You know, that's a callback to when he found a Rancor and said he'd ride it. You know,
yeah, for
like
sure.
it felt really disjointed. The interludes, while I enjoyed them, they are disjointed. They don't tie
hmm
in even well with they're very jarring. You know, people who are
Yeah,
saying, "Oh yeah, it's just Mando season 3, the first 2 episodes," 100% right. Like that's exactly what's going on.
yeah. Well, the
They
thing is
weren't
too,
like when
those.
Boba came on to Mandalorian and was a
Mm-mm.
side character in one of Din's stories. You know.
Yeah, no, they Din's episode 5 was, and episode 6 with Luke and Ahsoka and all
Mm-hmm.
them. Those two episodes are arguably some of the best Star Wars live action that I've ever enjoyed.
Yeah,
You know what
they
I
were
mean?
awesome.
Like Boba's
It's
episode,
just
dude. Maybe
weird.
like he fought what is it, Paz Vizsla, the Tar Vizsla's descendant. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was such a cool little setup because clearly they're gonna fight in the future over the Dark Saber again. Like that's like they laid the groundwork for that fight. Like that's gonna be a great build up. And then dude, just the whole like him getting armor for Grogu, and they're kind of teasing the fact that Grogu might I think he might be the next and second only like Mandalorian Jedi. That would be pretty sweet, to see him that, because I mean technically, so he's not at Luke's academy, so he doesn't get diced up by Ben Solo. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so he has to be somewhere during the sequel trilogies, and it'd be sick if he was like ruling Mandalore or something. You know what I mean?
That'd be
Like
dope,
dude lives for a
dude.
thousand years,
Oh, dude,
the longest reigning
What
king.
if Yoda was short for his species and Grogu ends up being like 9 feet tall and like just fucking big floppy eared like yoked motherfucker? You
That's
know?
funny.
Oh,
hmm
that'd be fantastic. You know what? I might try to do that fan art myself.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick actually.
Yeah,
Just a dieseled up Grogu.
yeah, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Fuck
It's
yeah.
just Boba's story wasn't like, honestly. I don't know that I needed. I think their marketing for the show was wrong. Like it seems like it was like half put together. Because I would definitely wouldn't call it a book. I'd maybe call it like a,
Pamphlet,
you know, yeah,
the
yeah,
brochure
yeah.
of Boba Fett.
Yeah, yeah, the brochure of Boba Fett. Yeah, for sure, dude. The
Yeah.
brochure of Boba Fett. Um, and it's like it didn't. Honestly, I don't really care for a season two. I don't think I need a season two Boba Fett. I'm just not interested. I don't want to hear. I mean, for one, I'm over Tatooine unless it's something that has to do something with like Luke or Obi-Wan. Like I don't want to. I just don't want to have to deal with Tatooine anymore. I'm over it. It's ridiculous. I've seen
Yeah.
it for
Oh yeah.
40
No,
years.
sick of
You know
Tatooine.
what I mean? Yeah.
Again,
Um,
easy to film on though.
yeah. Yeah.
You
For
know.
sure. Yeah. Well, now they do everything in the volume, so they can film whatever they want.
Well, I mean, you still have to have like for outdoors you need location and stuff like that, and so
Well,
unless you're filming inside, and it's a lot easier to like alter or cover a blank background, of like the
sand.
horizon of a desert, yeah,
Yeah.
versus oh we got a forest here, we got a mountain
hmm
backdrop back there. I'm sure that comes
Yeah.
into discussion, but you're supposed to be in bed. You're not supposed to be here. I'm gonna leave this here, and you're gonna go to bed. I'll fix it for you tomorrow. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Sneaking out.
I told you if I saw you again, you wouldn't play any video games or watch any TV tomorrow. So you have 5 seconds to get into bed before I. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You better disappear. Thank you. Good night. Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, we're definitely going to be considering timing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, didn't hate it. Kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Don't really like if they didn't do a season 2, I wouldn't be mad. I would not be mad.
yeah. I think it would have been cool if they maybe just made it like a limited series and just not gave any Din or Grogu and just did a strictly Boba Fett like 5 episodes, 4 episodes, like just a real short, like to the point, you know.
Well, and this is
Kind of
why
love letter to the Boba Fett fans.
and
That
this
was
is
never
why
really a Boba
fans
Fett
need to
fan.
just shut the fuck up
Hmm.
because they keep saying stuff. We want this, we want that, and so the company listens. See, this is the issues. You can have a guy that doesn't really know anything about how any of this stuff works, like as far as the storytelling or whatever, but he hears, oh, yo, man, I hear the people watching that show we did really want one for Boba Fett. Man, that guy
Yeah.
sounds cool. I saw a movie once.
Yep.
And obviously
Yep.
people who are in production and whatnot, I'm sure know film, but they may not always be tied to the right aspects of it, and I'm sure there are times where someone's pushing for something because they think it's a good idea, and because it can
Hmm.
be done. Doesn't necessarily mean it really needs to. So fans, just shut up.
Yeah. It's what'd you think of Cad Bane and Boba Fett's interaction?
Great, but like Cad Bane was completely underused in the Clone Wars show, and of course we're talking about animation. He's this really animated character, He's
Hmm.
like zipping around and flying around,
I
and
mean, he's
he's an
like 80
action
at this.
character.
Yeah, he's like 80 at this point.
Doesn't
He's not
matter.
really
It's
holding.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
matter.
fair.
Darth Vader
Uh,
got lit on fire and half his arms cut off.
yeah, he literally has no limbs. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like anything's possible in Star Wars, right?
yeah, that's fair.
Fucking Palpatine returned
Palpat
somehow. So
Somehow
it's like
Palpatine's returned.
yeah. So it's like
Worst line in friggin' movie history.
yeah. I mean, plus he's using rocket boots. It's like I was kind of
Yeah,
actually looking forward to seeing those.
I, I was hoping to see him. There was there was like one theory out there, like story theory that I thought honestly probably would have been a cool theory. Because they hint at, or the armor says that uh carries whoever rides what's the big animal called that's extinct?
the
The
Mythosaur.
crest, the mythosaur. Yeah. So like
Hmm.
the one who rides the mythosaur will rule Mandalore or whatever. It'd have been cool if like Din fights Cad Bane. Cad Bane beats Din because he's held his own against Jedi. Like he's a fantastic fighter, right?
Hmm.
Best bounty hunter in the galaxy. So him and Din get into it. Din just gets, maybe not annihilated, but he gets beat. So Cad Bane grabs the saber. He knows how to use a lightsaber. He's done it. He then fights a Boba. Boba then beats Cad Bane, which then gives him the control of the dark saber. And now Boba is the ruler of Mandalore, which would follow in the footsteps of his father, because Jango at one point leads in Mandalore. Um, for
Yeah, but Django's kind of like a shithead. And
yeah, but
like he's
Boba can
like
be better.
you know, I don't know, reluctant leader is what Boba becomes in the books later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just would have been a cool thing. You know what I mean?
I think Cape Corona's right. Like there, it's like the story needed to be compelling, and after the Tuscan sequence, it really isn't. In fact,
Hey,
the
episode
revenge
4,
the revenge story arc is fulfilled by Fennec Shan. She goes and assassinates all those leaders,
which honestly was one of the coolest. I was
which
arguing
was
one of the
pretty
coolest
cool. But
scenes.
like,
One of the coolest scenes in the finale for sure. But yeah, I agree. I just don't think. I mean, this is the problem, right? You make a show, you call it the Book of Boba Fett with this crazy like cool, final end scene or end credit scene in the Mando season 2. Everybody's
mm-hmm.
super hyped, and then your main character, which the title of the show is named after, arcs out 4 episodes in. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you arc out your main character 4 episodes into a 7 episodes
Well, I
season.
mean, they could have grown it beyond that, but then they didn't for some reason. I really, honestly, don't know why they included the interlude episodes. The only thing I can
Yeah,
think of is that they're trying to kind of weave all these characters and their stories together for when they launch the Ahsoka show, and I guess
yeah. I
now
mean,
the
it
Luke
just feels like they.
Skywalker Academy show or whatever the fuck they're doing.
Dude, I hope so. I want them to recast though. I can't. I mean,
Yeah.
the CGI Luke is fantastic and it's really mind blowing, especially them not using any recorded lines that Mark Hamill did for the show. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing technological feat. But give me a freaking actor so I can like.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I don't need Mark Hamill. I need Luke Skywalker as a character.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I need.
I mean,
Like, give me a
I
good.
think I touched on that last week, like that.
Well, nobody heard it.
There's yeah, right. That they never. I don't even want to go into it again because it makes me so angry. But
Yeah.
I miss Luke Skywalker. He's my idol growing up, and then Mark Hamill never really gets to. He really never gets his day like he should have, in the sequel era, and then post Lucas era, and
Yeah.
instead they keep sucking Harrison Ford's dick, and
He
then
doesn't want to
Boba
be in Star
Fett's,
Wars.
and yeah, right,
Yeah.
like it's just
Yeah.
I don't know, but anyway, so yeah, so that's how that finished out. Now, this Lord of the Rings trailer.
Oh yeah. Let's do it.
So have you watched it already?
I have seen it
Okay, I
multiple times.
I was
And I'm
waiting
afraid I'm.
for tonight.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, so I have
Sorry.
not seen it.
Keep
So
100% recast Sebastian Stan. I 100% agree with that
yeah,
statement. I will sign the petition today if there is one.
there should be. All
If
right,
there's not one, I'll make one. I'll sign one.
all right. Let's fire this up. Let's see. I'm gonna share the whole screen because that'll. Don't. What are you doing? There we go. Okay. All right.
Haven't you ever wondered what else is out there? There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. I can feel it.
You share your screen?
All right. That's pretty dope.
Hold on. I didn't even see the trailer.
What are you talking about?
Like I didn't see it on Discord. Did you share your screen?
Yeah, I did. You're just
Oh.
looking in the wrong area.
Am I? Hold on.
Yeah. And
How does that
I'm just remembering I did watch it earlier. Thought I was waiting. But yeah, no, it's I'm stoked. I'm pretty excited. Now, like one of my concerns is I don't want him to like actionify it too much. I think I've talked about this before, like stylized action in films.
Yeah.
One of my issues with the most recent Matrix movie was that they substituted that really distinct fighting. You get it in the scene with Morpheus in in the virtual in the holding space or whatever it's called. But throughout the rest of the film, they just defaulted to that post 2000 high speed brawl style that you don't really see what's going on, but it just focuses on like brutality and violence of action, right? So it's just like in using the environment, so throwing people through windows and like shit like that. Before that you had the classic slug the guy in the in the mouth, and like sometimes you do a through the window gag, but like I worry about them muddling in Peter Jackson's movies, one thing I really enjoyed about the action was the variance in like just the sheer spectrum of variety they had, which was nice. You've got
Yeah,
Legolas, who's like the top tier guy that can do all the crazy shit, and then everyone
yeah.
else just has different ways they fight.
Mm-hmm.
Gimli, short, stout, swinging his
Yeah,
axe, and then
yeah,
Aragorn's the sword guy, but yeah, everyone
yeah,
else, kind of, the orcs are wild and everything.
yeah.
And it's that shot with Galadriel, that's young Galadriel, on the ice with the
Oh, their dagger.
with the
Yeah, yeah,
dagger. It makes me
yeah.
think that there's just going to be so many moments like that are really just fabricated action beats, like to bring
Yeah.
suspense or
Well,
excitement.
that's the thing that I think. So they have the right to the appendices from Lord of the Rings. That's what they've acquired, which basically takes place at all the Second Age and like First Age, right? It's all the events. The thing they have with the Second Age though, that is I guess to their benefit, but also potentially could not be, is that there's not a lot of like dialogue and like very specific things written about that. It's a lot more of like sequences and events and general like historical notes of things of importance. So it leaves a lot of creativity and liberty to write all the in between stuff, all the meat and
Yeah.
potatoes of those stories. Um, and so I think that's a good potential. Like that's
Hmm.
going to be maybe a good thing for them. But at the same time, they could also, if they write it wrong and it doesn't feel like Tolkien, then like it's going to be trash. And that's one thing I think that like Peter Jackson and was it his wife that wrote it or
Fran
um
Walsh. It was him,
uh
Fran Walsh, and
yeah. But
is
I
that
think
his wife? No,
I
no,
thought that's not
Fanny
entirely.
something.
I
Why
thought that
can
was
I
his
not
wife.
remember these names?
I don't know,
I
but
don't know.
she was the head writer on the Lord of the Rings trilogies,
Mm-hmm.
and she did a great job because she would take excerpts from the book and rewrite them in just a little bit so that they better fit like a film,
Mm-hmm.
and it still felt like Tolkien. You know what I mean? My issue is like I watched some of that trailer, and I was looking at some of the pictures, and some of it doesn't really feel Tolkien-esque. I mean, part
Like
of it,
what?
one is we've never really we've never really seen Second Age outside of the prologue to Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? But like the scene, which is a really cool scene, but when they're like when Galadriel and who's the new character they wrote? Haldrim or something like that, the human character.
The Haradrim?
Uh Har no, is that his name?
Wait, who?
I think his name's Haldrim.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry. I
He's the
was.
he's the human character that they wrote that
Mm-hmm.
him and Galadriel are on the little boat thingy in the raging waters.
Mm-hmm.
Like that looked cool. It looked like a very cool sequence, but it doesn't feel like it didn't necessarily feel like Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? And then
Being
they
on a
have
boat?
well, just like that whole like raging water scene. I don't know. I just didn't. It looked really cool, and I really enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed it visually. Like I think visually this show's gonna be very very good because the budget's insane and it's gonna look really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know what I mean?
I'm looking
But
for the boat scene in question.
yeah, I should probably pull up the trailer as well so I can just see it. Yeah, I gotta agree with Cape Crona. I mean, especially the short hair on elves, like the young Elrond with the short hair, like very modern. And then I think Galadriel's brother is in one of the sequences where he's fighting in like the first age, and
Mm-hmm.
he has super short hair, which is like it is like long
Isn't
hair
that
is a
Elrond right
distinction.
here?
Hold on, I can't see it on my Discord, but I have to pull up the YouTube. To see,
Why can you not see it on the Discord?
I have no idea. It's not sharing on the Discord.
That's strange because I'm sharing to
Uh,
you. It's one of our windows now. So there's you, me, and then the window that I'm sharing.
yeah, I don't have a third window. I just
That is
have the.
so weird.
Uh,
Oh wait, hold on. How about now?
are you sharing your screen with me?
Yeah.
I see it. I see it on our stream.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
that's
see
good
it.
enough. That's good enough then. So
Let me
is
see.
this is
Oh,
Elrond, right?
hold on. I'm watching it now. Okay, there we go. No, that's not Eldron. That's not Elrond.
Okay, wait.
That's uh what's his name? What's his name? It's gonna kill me.
Haldrim, the one you're talking about.
That's not Haldrim. That's some elf
This
guy
is
that
Haldrim, the elf guy.
no, that Haldrim's the man. the dude. Um, he's the guy on the boat. Oh, replay the trailer. Replay the trailer from start. I'm watching the stream. I can see it now. So, do you have audio on it? Put some audio.
What else is out there?
Okay, wait, hold on. We're gonna go back.
Yeah, hey, drop the audio a little bit,
What
just
else
so
is
it's not
out
so
there?
overbearing. It's a little loud.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
All right, that
All
looks
right,
pretty
cool.
sick.
Yeah, hit it.
What is that, Numenor?
That is
No,
Numenor. I think
this
that
is. No, this might be the
no.
Bay of Belfalas. If
I
that's
think
like
that's
the White
no.
Mountains or something, or where is this?
No, that's the holy mountain from in the center of Numenor on the island.
That's
so I think this is
that's
Numenor,
right. Okay, yeah.
and I think this is one of the coasts, like one of the pier, like the what do they call them?
The harbors.
The harbors, yeah.
Okay.
Wonders in this world.
I like this is very Peter Jackson. This scene right here is a very Peter Jackson-esque scene, helicopter, big New Zealand landscape with these hunting some cool, like that's one thing that we never really saw, I guess, in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit was like kind of like some like fantasy, like very fantasy based like animals, like maybe like some really big mooses. I mean, we saw the Oliphants, I guess, but it'd be cool to see some like natural game out there in the wilderness that they hunt. That would be pretty sweet.
Okay.
I'm down with that. So I think that's what that is.
No, those are people, dude.
I know those are people, but the antlers they're carrying, like they're hunters.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
So like
Okay.
seeing the animals that they hunt that aren't like
Just
that
deer.
aren't ones that we have on Earth, right? It's like maybe they're like a little bit bigger than
Fantastic
like bigger
beasts that aren't
sure.
just trolls and goblins and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't know what the fuck
Hey,
that's supposed to be, but
no,
if it's
so
a hobbit,
this-
I'm gonna be pissed.
it's not a hobbit per
Good.
se, because hobbits weren't really super active in the Second Age. They're called half-foots. They're like it's like a different it's like a different sect of hobbit. So I think she's a
so they're
half-foot.
hobbits.
They're hobbits, but they're like a variation. They're like not as refined, like not as
Well, as long as they're not important.
the- I don't know. I mean, she's narrating, so she's probably gonna.
Mate, yeah.
I love this shot, dude.
This
That looks
shot's
so
gorgeous. I
that
have
looks so
to
cool.
assume this is like the Angmar region, like the Northern Realm, basically.
I think so. I think that's where
Angmar, stuff like
Galadriel. I think that's where Galadriel's at. She's in the northern.
I'm foggy
Northern
again on
section.
my history. I never read I read parts of the Silmarillion, and then everything else I read was just I would read the appendices every time I finished Lord of the Rings, which is where a
for
lot
sure.
of this came from. But
Yeah, so I think she's. A lot of people think that this is where she crosses, where the elves cross from Valinor into Middle Earth, but
oh yeah,
but that's
'Cause
not it
arches
because
around it from
yeah,
Arda,
but that's not it because
or not
it's
from
when
Arda.
the elves cross from Valinor, it's dark. Sunlight and moon like the sun and moon haven't been created yet, so it's all dark. So the fact that it's lit by daylight, it would say that contextually, unless they change the lore, then that's not what that is. I think she's just somewhere in the northern regions.
Well, there's
on a
also the
mission.
question of like how are you supposed to show anything on film if there's no light?
Yeah, yeah.
But-
Well, yeah, I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Hairfoot. Thank you, Cape Corona.
Airfoots, that's right.
Yeah.
I read it about. Okay.
So this scene right here.
That's the shot you're talking about.
Yeah. So that scene, it's very cool. It's a very cool scene, but I guess we just haven't really seen it in Lord of the Rings. They don't
So-
spend a lot of time on the water.
So this I don't mind. This is
So
shot
that's-
on a
that's-
set. This is shot on the
that-
set. It is shot
yeah.
in a
That's
water
Halbrand.
tank. Okay. This
Halbrand is his name. That's his name. Halbrand.
it's stuff like this that I don't care for. Where the filmographers are constantly putting characters under
Yeah, like high
the most-
intensity action
the
sequences.
most radical situations that they're just supposed to barely survive.
Yeah,
And you're not
well-
supposed to believe it. And the effect is, one, it drives production costs up because they're wasting their time doing shit like that all the time. And then two, it really
Well,
waters down
Bezos
and
doesn't care about that.
desensitizes you to that. So
Yeah.
like
I mean, Galadriel's clearly going to be the main character, if not one. I mean, she's either one of the main characters or she's the main character, at least of the first season.
yeah.
Which I'm okay with. She's a very important character in the story. But it'll be interesting to see how because in the Vanity Fair article they say how she's like more what is it? What's it used?
Well, you kind of have to compress 2,500 years of history.
Yeah, so that's actually one thing that I think that they've already announced, or I saw somewhere. But the first two episodes are gonna be the first age compressed into 3 hours. So like the first episode are gonna be an hour and a half each, and
Ah, okay, I like that.
it's gonna be like Lord of the Rings had the prologue of the second age. The
Hmm.
first two episodes is a 3 hour prologue of the first age, which would be sick because actually
That
in
would
one of
be
these
sick.
in one of the scenes here you see Galadriel's brother fighting in which been the first age because he dies in the first age.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I think I
um,
know what
and
shot that
it
is.
talks about in the Vanity Fair article that she's out for a vengeance. So that guy, that's
Yeah, there you go.
that
That's her
scene right
brother
there.
right there.
Yeah, the other elf, the older guy, he's like the leader of the elves at this time. Yeah, that's her brother.
Yeah.
So this is like a battle in the first age where he dies. Like
Hmm.
he should die at least. So that's why she's on like a big vengeance quest, hunting down the remnants of Morgoth supporters or whatever.
Hmm.
So this guy right here, this meteor guy, I don't know anything about that from any of the books or lore. I don't know what this is. I don't know if he's a dwarf or if he's like a blue wizard maybe. I don't know.
Wizards weren't really doing their thing yet.
Well, the blue wizards were around,
They were.
and the blue wizards are the least written about wizards. We don't really know anything about them.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
So
Okay.
there's a lot of they can kind of write what they want. Um,
So
this
here's what
guy,
I'm guessing
he's
they're gonna do then is when I'm what
that guy.
so because they're not gonna write I mean exactly what they're gonna do is they're gonna write a Hollywood esque story structure out of the material that they have. So whatever they get out of the first stage, whatever's like least probably most important to premise. So we're talking about those first three episodes. Whatever's most
Hmm.
important to premise and setting and reintroduction, right? Because we're reacclimating an audience to the new version of an old property. Um, is gonna be basically like sidelined after that, right? It's icing on the cake. It's kind of like what gets the water warm for us. But then after that, it'll be I'm betting it will be a pretty straightforward epic. Unfortunately, I'm not expecting. I'm expecting them to favor mass appeal over storytelling prowess. So, whereas The Witcher season
Ah,
one tells this pretty pretty intricate and
yeah,
engrossing tale
yeah.
where you're
It's
not just
confusing as shit for the first 6 episodes.
no, no. Actually, it's not. It's not at all.
Well, it's not
It's
confusing, but
super
it's just like
straightforward. In fact, in the scene, you can get the timeline straight right at the beginning because there's this scene where Queen Calanthe talks about her where she started won her first battle right series like hey when do I get to do this cool shit. The
right.
scene after, Geralt shares with Renfrey, and Renfrey mentions Queen Calanthe just won the battle of whatever the fuck. That immediately, 15, 20 minutes in, places you timeline-wise. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it is, if you're paying attention,
Yeah,
it really,
that's fair.
like, tells an interesting story that weaves back and forth across itself, and then in the season finale, like,
Yeah,
reaches a
and
high water
well,
mark.
I also had when I watched the first season of Witcher, I had no context. I didn't play the games.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read the book, so for me, I was like very much like watching it as like a noob, like figuring it out. And then I think like episode might not have been six, but 4 or 5 maybe. Whenever they like really started piecing it together, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, now I got it.
Yeah, even for me, it was like episode 4. I
Yeah,
was like, oh yeah. But
yeah,
so
but
so I don't honestly I don't expect. Again, I expect them to favor mass appeal and to try to recapture the favor of of the audience that has propped up Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings all this time. I like that they're kind of sticking with the aesthetic direction that Peter Jackson set. I think he really hammered that in visually. Um, but yeah, you're right, Corona. Season 2 was much more linear, which is so, and that's a result of how the Witcher books are written. The Last Witch, which was the first Witcher book, is basically an anthology. It's a collection of different stories.
mm,
It's not a single story that's told from front to back. But the rest of the series is. So that's kind of what went on there. But let's see what's he saying. I wouldn't mind dwarf women with beards. That's fine. That'd be a funny callback.
I think this guy is Gil Galad.
Oh, Gilgalad, or
Yeah,
yeah,
Gilgal. Yeah,
yeah,
the Elven King.
Gilgalad. That's right.
Hmm.
That's right.
Yeah,
Actually, you see him in a shot in
yeah.
Fellowship of the Ring.
In
Yeah,
yeah in the prologue. Yeah,
he's carrying a sick ass spear.
yeah. He dies in that battle.
Yep. Yes, you
So
do.
that's cool.
So he'll be around for a
Uh,
while. I don't know. This guy's a little
yeah.
dumpy looking.
Well, I think this show, like, 'cause it's due for 5 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
is I think it ends with that. That is going to be the final like season. Is that leading up and that battle?
That'd be a good tie-in, yeah. Well, and
Mhm.
that's why making Galadriel or elves like the foci of the storytelling is a good thing because their longevity
Yeah.
actually brings them
Well,
all the
also
way
too,
through.
she does the prologue for the Fellowship, so I guess her story, her doing that and then making her the main character, does add like some like a plot line that leads up to it. Because she's
Yeah,
super powerful. I mean, she can.
yeah. She's one
She's
of the
very magical.
dopest.
Yeah,
She's very
she's
magical. Yeah,
she's borderline a wizard.
yeah.
So, all right, keep going.
So let's see. Yeah, I think this is nitpicky stuff. Short-haired elves. I mean, the dude's black. Like he's not gonna have white people hair.
Yeah, I don't remember any black elves,
Um,
but I'm not honestly. I'm not.
I don't
I don't really care for that.
I don't
Like it doesn't
really.
bother me. I
It's
don't think anything of it as
it's
long as they have a good
not
story. But yeah,
it's
it
not
is like
important. Um, like I mean, the things about elves that are important in Tolkien's books aren't that they have long hair. It's that they admire light and beauty above all things, and that they live long lives. You know that they're immortal. Like those are like the defining characteristics of elves. Not
well,
really what they look like.
they're also like very stoic in the sense that they've lived such long lives that they're mature far beyond any other being that they are around because they've just
And that's
you know.
actually why this is going to be interesting to see because the elves in the earlier time periods are a lot more
Well,
rambunctious.
I think even Galadriel, she's like gonna be 2,000 years younger in this
Oh
show,
yeah, she's going to be
so
yeah.
she'll be young.
Oh yeah.
Same with Elrond. Elrond's gonna be very young.
Mm-hmm. Gonna
Uh,
be hot-headed,
yeah,
high passions.
ambitious
Um,
too. You know what I mean? They're trying to make a name for themselves in this new world they live
full
in.
body armor. That's I don't see why that. I mean anything aesthetic. These are just aesthetic things. The forbidden love trope. So the only thing about that is it's a trope because Tolkien starts it as a trope. The whole
Yeah.
like with Arwen and Galadriel, and then they've got
Well,
Baron and Luthien, and in his own lore. Like so, like
hmm
these things between humans and elves come up constantly.
it makes sense.
It's a
natural.
trope, but it's like his trope. So
Yeah,
so it's kind
yeah,
of
for
hard to
sure.
hate him for it. And of course, we don't know what they're gonna do. I did read that the adult content that they're talking about, people were freaking out a while back about how
It's gonna
they'd
be TV
gotten
14. So
nudity authorized. Yeah, it's like you might see the curve of a hip, maybe some booties.
yeah, it's TV
You know?
14. So it's not like they're gonna you know it's they can't do much. I think the Wheel of Time is TV MA or whatever or NC
Yeah.
17 or whatever it is. So it's nothing like that. Obviously, there's not gonna be any swearing, profanity in it.
No.
That would throw me off if they drop like a random F bomb. I'd be like, what? That's not in Tolkien didn't write that. That's like
So
that'd be weird, like a dialogue. So and I don't think they
yeah.
would, even though they technically they would be allowed that per like the rating guidelines. They're allowed X amount of things. But dude, I'm really not worried about this whole because even I think someone put it. I think Bezos himself or the showrunners put it in context that um when Jeff Bezos says he wants the next Game of Thrones, he wasn't talking about Game of Thrones in the sense of how it's written or the rating or anything. He's talking about the cultural phenom. He wants
Yeah.
this to be the next cultural phenomenon
Yeah.
for the fantasy genre, things that people are every week. They're like there's watch parties at bars and restaurants because everybody's trying to watch the latest episode of the Lord of the Rings of
Now,
Power.
unfortunately, part of what gave Game of Thrones that that oomph was that they're willing to throw floppy wieners basically all over the place.
Yeah,
So
but I would argue Lord of the Rings is a better story, and I think if they do it
no, no,
right,
no, it
they
is,
do it
but
right. If
not
they do it
everyone
right, it's
watches
gonna
things for the story. I mean, how many people
no.
tune into the
But I
Super
mean,
Bowl?
yeah, true. But I think like I'm okay with if they add. I mean, because the second age is a much more action packed than it is. The first age is probably the most action packed, but the second age is also very action packed.
Hmm.
So they can throw action in there as long as it makes sense. And there's a ton of because I think I think they said there's like 20 or 22 like main characters that they're kind of running multiple storylines through. Because during the fourth is in here,
Yep.
which is like
Gonna
we're gonna
get
see the mind.
Sikaza Doom, which will be
Dude,
awesome.
at its finest, the Mines of Moria just like thriving, and that whole battle is gonna be super cool. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, see the was it the people that were the ancestors of the Rohirrim, the whatever those guys are called. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember what their names are, but like their ancestors, the horse people ancestors. Uh,
Man, hey, Gurm can consider his story. We'll judge his story as superior when he fucking finishes it.
oh, George R. R. Martin, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think his story is superior, especially considering how much he says The Lord of the Rings was a direct inspiration for the Game of Thrones.
Well, I don't know if superior is like, it's not a worthwhile metric.
No,
Like, and
I
maybe this is just because I'm also a creative, and so when I'm looking for sources of inspiration or direction or reference, like I'm going to Game of Thrones, but I'm going to Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to them for different reasons. You know,
yeah.
I'm not going to one because it's better than the other. You know,
Hmm.
I'm going there
Well,
because I'm looking for something different.
I think what this show will provide that Game of Thrones had that people enjoyed was that political kind of like, these like houses, rivaling houses going against each other. Because in the Second Age, you have two or three prominent elven, like houses, so to speak, right, that are all trying to be established. You have a bunch of young, powerful elves like Elrond and Galadriel trying to make names for themselves, and establish their kingdoms eventually. You have the new Minorians that are going to be, doing their thing, who eventually get corrupted. So, like, I think we are going to see some of that dynamic of like this political, like, because I think the Vanity Fair article they say that Elrond is like he's very like politically ambitious. Like he's really trying to like maybe unite people or kind of
I'm a little hesitant there because like ultimately Tolkien's stories are about, collisions between good and evil, and then like,
yeah. Well,
he hints at like political intrigue and whatnot, but like it's the lines are usually pretty clearly drawn, and in the lore he does not draw these lines very detailed senses. It's largely like Morgoth and his side versus, like the Valar and their side, and then later on you've got Sauron versus Middle Earth and everything. But like,
yeah, but I think you
so I
can
don't
have
know. I
the
don't know how close you can get to the Game of Thrones sense of political intrigue without it feeling forced, or tonally different. You know.
yeah, for sure.
What is interesting to note though about the trilogy is that it's a a grand scale story written, kind of woven through the acts and the actions of individual characters rather than a grand narrative that's imposed underneath the story of these heroes like you would have in Star Wars, right? Like it's Luke Skywalker and then the bigger picture, right? It kind of collapses
Yeah.
backwards
Well,
in
yeah.
Tolkien's writing. I would like to see
Cape,
them be a little bit more focused on that. So I do
yeah.
kind of like I am kind of wondering what they mean by like, oh yeah, we're writing story arcs for 22 characters or something like that.
Well,
Um,
yeah, it's I mean, yeah, they're balancing multiple storylines because in Second Age there's a lot going on, right? You have the dwarves doing their thing and they're thriving. You've got all the different human races that are establishing them because all the kingdoms and groups of people we see in the Third Age and like the Lord of the Rings books, they're
mm-hmm,
all either not around or are going to be established very soon during the Second Age. And so the people like the Rohirrim, I mean, obviously Gondor and Arnor aren't established yet because it's still Numenor as the main. So like seeing that whole because Numenor is very in the books. I mean, there's definitely a lot of like political there with the king and young Isildur and all that stuff. And young Isildur has a very, I mean, he has a great story in the books. In the movies they kind of write him off as being like kind of a bad guy in the sense because but then he doesn't want to throw away the ring and then he dies right in the riverbank. But he's a very heroic and like good hero up until that point. You know what I mean? He just got corrupted by the ring. But
Well,
he
that's kind
is
of thing
like
is they
he's
all are, right?
he's a
It's
he's a he's,
flush with
he's a badass
heroes.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um.
So there's a lot of like there's a lot of opportunity there for sure.
Yeah. What do you
Uh,
think of the overall like set appearances? What do you think of like the costume design, the set pieces of the show so far? Do you feel like you're being pulled back into Middle Earth?
So what I yeah actually, and I mentioned that briefly a little bit ago. They really followed the tone of like the aesthetic set by Jackson's take on Lord
Mm-hmm.
of the Rings, which is really just another sign that Jackson's take is basically like, as far as film is concerned, is like the fundamental. That's the
Do you think
fundamental take right there.
do you think they should have brought him back?
But it doesn't look like they copied it.
No,
That's a really interesting question.
because I don't as far as I'm aware, he has nothing to do with this series at all.
Um,
I don't even think he's consulting or anything.
no, he's not. From what I know, that's an interesting question. Like you got to think about what. So Lord of the Rings, his Lord of the Rings films were like a labor of love, and he wanted that same labor of love to go into The Hobbit, and production didn't let him, which is
Well,
why The Hobbit
I
turned out the
think
way it
I,
was.
Hollywood interfered too much with that's the thing is right is that and that the it's a story as old as Hollywood is right. They get a
Yeah.
great story, they make a sequel, and then next and they want to add all these things that they think people will enjoy, like a weird love triangle, and not that
Honestly,
you know
it wasn't even things like that.
not
The
not
issues
even
that I
but like
had
for
are
me it's
like
like
the sheer number of films, things like that. That's where the problem
I mean,
started.
it definitely The Hobbit definitely should have been two instead of three movies for sure. Three was a stretch. I think if they would have just made it two movies, it would have had much more like of a clear
I
cut
mean,
and
even one as a love letter, to the
yeah.
trilogy, would have
I think
been far
I
more
think
palatable.
I think one might have felt a little rushed, even though The Hobbit's only one book. I think if you'd have split it into two parts, I think that would like part one, part two. I think that would have been great. Like it didn't need to be it was a trilogy for trilogy's sake
Yeah.
because trilogies
Well, that's what I'm
are the
saying.
thing,
Yeah,
right?
you get a whole third
But
movie's worth of revenue out of it.
and then they brought in like they brought in Legolas, which was like not needed. Like he has nothing to do
Well,
with the Hobbit.
when you decide to turn a one movie book into three movies, you've got to start filling the time in.
Yeah, but I mean, Gandalf and Sauron are there. Those are two characters you can bring in that are around in that time. And you have Galadriel and you have Elrond. So I don't think they needed to bring in anybody extra. Obviously Legolas is a fan favorite. Everybody likes Legolas. You tell anybody who's seen Lord of the Rings like, oh yeah, Legolas is in that. You know what I mean? He's part of pop culture. You see
Mm.
any video game or show where a guy's super good with the bow and arrow, it's you're like, oh, it's like Legolas. You know what I mean? It's a
Well, that see like so the goal there should be then to create a new character that can fill that cultural
Well,
space, not just.
I think that's what they're trying to do with this other elf guy. I don't know what his name is. I have to look.
I mean, there are enough elves. Honestly, I'm not sure how this whole like character creation thing
Arendir.
is gonna go.
Arendir's the guy's name.
Hmm.
Hey, but if you see, in the trailer, he has a little scene where he catches the arrow. They slow it down,
Yeah, I
but
like it.
where he catches the arrow and shoots it back.
Yeah,
If he's like a cool
that's
like if
some
he
Legolas
feels
shit.
that
Yeah.
yeah if he feels that void of like super like very like good warrior elf who's dynamic. I think that's
Hmm.
one thing that Legolas maybe lacked in the movies was he wasn't a super dynamic character. He was pretty cut and dry, for the
Yeah.
most part. But I think having like a very like almost like human esque elf warrior who's conflicted maybe with what the elves are because at this time Second Age the elves are really establishing themselves right in Middle Earth. And maybe this elf is conflicted with that. Maybe he doesn't see himself as a superior race or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? But that would be kind of interesting.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe it's the inverse. Maybe he chooses to live amongst men instead of living with the elves or something.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
he's dressed pretty elfy.
Well, right now, this is. I mean, I think honestly, I think everything we're seeing in this trailer is maybe the first three episodes.
Yeah. That. I mean, that's gonna be the most.
Dude, that's a great scene right there, and that's actiony, but it's like it's not.
No, see
You
this.
know,
Yeah, this kind of stuff I like.
yeah. Slow that way down. Let's watch it now, half speed. see that like
I
look
love that arrow
he's
flopping
he
back and forth
saved
the distance. Yeah.
he saved somebody with it. You know what I mean? And like this is clearly him fighting.
I don't know. That guy looks like he might already be dead. Okay, no,
No,
they're moving. All right, they're
he's
moving. They're
moving, he's
moving.
moving. Yeah, he's moving.
It's
But
like-
like, see, look at like this is he's very cool. You know, like I like, and he has a relationship with the human girl. So
mm,
see this comet or meteorite thing. I don't
mhm.
understand that yet. This I don't know what type of monster that is. It's some type of troll of some sorts, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's one thing that's cool about the second age is that there's way more monsters and
yeah,
things around.
yeah. Probably see a few
The
Balrogs here
honestly,
and there.
I think young Elrond. I think that's what we see in one of these clips actually when Galandriel's
That
brother
is
right
that.
here in the background in the back right. I think that's a Balrog. Yeah, get right right here in the back right. I think
Back
that's a
top right.
Balrog in the back. Yep, I think that's a Balrog, dude. Because you gotta think that battle's taking place most likely if they're following the lore. That's in the first age.
That doesn't look
In
like a Balrog.
the first age, the Balrogs are active and fighting. They're generals in
No,
Morgoth's
they
army.
are. That just looks like something on fire, though.
I don't know, dude. I'm hanging tight that we're gonna see a Balrog in the middle
I
of
would
it.
like to see. I definitely would like to see
Imagine seeing
Balrog.
like 4 or 5 Balrogs like leading troops. It's like, dude, sick,
That'd be sick.
sick.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I'd be about it.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Yeah. So
I like that. I
what's
like that they kept the Lord of the Rings in the title. I'm cool with that. Doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. And
Yeah, I don't know
especially
what-
since because some people were like, oh, they're just trying to draw on it for marketing, but I'm like, well, the story is about it is about Sauron. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I
And
mean,
if this show is about the creation of the rings, I think
Yeah.
the first season ends with the creation of the rings.
we're gonna
I think
see,
that's
we
I think
are
I
gonna
saw
see
that.
sexy Sauron. Like
Dude.
Corona mentioned, hot Sauron.
I'm down with that
And
because
still all elfy.
he's supposed to be very deceiving. You know what I mean?
He's
He's supposed to be
yeah.
like very cunning, very smart, charming. You know what I mean? Kind of like Lucifer-esque in that
Yeah.
sense.
I mean,
Um,
he's a stand-in for Satan, basically.
Yeah, but I'm cool with that, and I that's one thing like the political aspect where I'm excited to see him kind of turn the Numenorians into that civil conflict that eventually caused them to fall, right? Because
Well,
he's the one
it's
that
not just civil war. They turn into like a death cult.
well they eventually he convinced them to go against the gods, right?
Yeah, that
he
too. Yeah.
so it's like that's gonna be very interesting to see. I'm excited to see like Isildur and his brother. I can't remember his brother's name. They're the
know.
it because in the Fellowship you see them in the Argonath, the two big statues.
Yeah.
One's Isildur and one's his brother. Whatever his brother's name is. Can't remember.
Hold on, I'm gonna Google.
But
Let's see.
oh, dude, some Tom Bombadil. Maybe the guy coming from the meteorite is Tom Bombadil coming to Earth. But no, in the books he's always been there.
Anarian. Anarian.
What's his name?
Anarian.
I would never remember that.
Yeah.
Tom
I
Bombadil would be
don't
cool.
I don't need to see any Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil doesn't.
I don't
serve
mind if they throw him in there. Why not?
Any purpose to any of the storytelling. So that's
Yeah,
why they cut him out of the movies.
Well, I think they cut him out because he's just too complex and doesn't make any sense. You're like, what? Who's this guy? He's been here forever.
Well,
He's a hobbit, but he's not a hobbit. What is he? What is this?
There
guy?
are the idea that I buy into is that Tom Bombadil is a personal reflection of Tolkien's self, right? He's someone who exists outside the rules of the realm that he created. He's someone that predates it.
Yeah. Well, I think he's also
And he-
I think he also might be what's the Iluvatar, like Iluvatar incarnate, like he's like Iluvatar on Middle Earth, like that's who he is. You know what I mean? He is essentially God.
Yeah, I've heard. I like the idea that Tom Bombadil represents Tolkien as the author more.
Yeah,
so,
no, I think so
right?
too.
Because he
But,
describes
you know-
himself as like the first of things and whatnot. And again,
Yeah.
and he's entirely
Well, I don't know.
segregated from
Yeah,
from the story that is occurring. So
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
which again is another reason to exclude him. They talk about him actually in the book. Elrond does, you know, and basically describes him as someone that has literally no stake in.
Yeah.
You know, in the goings ons of life itself, right? Basically, you know, at least on
All right.
that planet.
So let's 'cause I got about 10 minutes, but
okay.
just real quick, last 2 points I want our takes on.
Mhm.
What's what's one thing that you want to see the most, and what's one thing you hope they don't do?
I'm excited to see them cover how the relationships between the races degrade.
Hmm.
Because that's something like
Sure.
the stealing of the jewels and things like that. Like
Right.
those are definitely things that get alluded to in the later history and everything. They come up in the trilogy. They come up in the Hobbit. And those would be cool events to see take place and to see how much
Hmm.
detail they put into them. That is a
Yeah.
good area for like political intrigue to inject some. Um, as far as things I don't want them to do, honestly, I don't think there's anything that I'm really afraid of them doing that I would not want them to do. If that makes sense,
Hmm.
right?
Sure.
I don't want them to turn it into this like grossly sexual bullshit, but I wasn't expecting them to do that anyways. So
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Um, yeah, I think for me, I think one thing that I got someone trying to send my door.
I don't want the story to be predictable. That's my thing. I don't want to be able to see the story beats as they, you know, I don't want them to just I don't want them to just default to this, hero's journey bullshit that
Yeah,
writes this really predictable and understandable story. Because that's going to suck
yeah.
all the suspense out of everything. It's going to suck all the intrigue. It's going to, I'm going to know how things are going to resolve the second I
Hmm.
see the stones being laid. And I just, that is what I would like to avoid.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, um, one thing I don't want to see, and it was one of my biggest complaints about The Hobbit outside of story, was like there this very like this CGI heavy action sequences. They're like fantastical like leaps or whatever else they would do when they were like running through the goblin mines or goblin cave or whatever. You know what I mean? Like those like really like heavy CGI moments that just didn't hold, like they just don't really hold up well, and they're not needed. One thing I loved about Lord of the Rings was the practicality and the action sequences. And yes, obviously there's CGI, and there wasn't freaking 10,000 Uruk-hai at Helm's Deep and whatever, but the battles felt real. You know what I mean? They felt
Yeah.
very tangible, and like they felt like the swords hitting the armor, like it had weight. It felt very believable because it was. They were actual sequences,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's one thing that I hope that they don't do, is that they don't have these CGI like non-realistic looking and feeling action sequences. I don't mind action at all. I encourage it as long as it's, but for the, especially when it comes to like medieval fantasy, the action needs to be practical. Right? That's one thing that's like there's a movie from like the I think late 90s, I don't know if you remember. It's got like Marlon Wayans in it, and I can't remember the other guy's actor, but Dungeons and Dragons they did.
I remember that movie.
The action in that was just so whack, dude.
Yeah.
Um, it's so terrible. Like way too like it was like CGI that wasn't at its peak by any means. But
Yeah.
that's my biggest thing with the Hobbit. Is the Hobbit they had like very like even Legolas had some like really stupid scenes, like when he was hopping on the rocks as they're falling. Like yeah, that's cool, but stupid. Like
It,
him sliding
I
him
mean,
sliding him sliding down the stairs on an Uruk-hai shield. That's legit. That
that
like
that was sick,
that
right? Because
that
because you can
that
do that on a
well
skateboard, right? There's
you
there's there's a relatable
well, you,
aspect to that.
well, that, but like you, that's like I'm like, oh yeah, elves have perfect balance, like or very good balance,
Mm-hmm.
and him sliding down, like that's very, and you hear the, like and then he shoots it off, like that's very, I would believe an elf could do that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like this mystical, like he's as light as a feather, and he's like perfectly floating on like and not putting any pressure on the rocks as they fall. Stupid to me. I don't
They
like
they
it.
lose me with the
Uh,
Urukai trunk slide, but
yeah,
that's about as bad as it gets in the
yeah,
trilogy.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, his shoes are just automatically like super slippery
Mm-hmm.
on the Oliphant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Greased up elephant.
yeah, yeah, just smooth velvet shoes. I think one thing I'm most excited for though is I'm excited for them because there's not a lot of like dialogue context about the second age. It's all like sequence of events and historical like big moments and big characters.
Mm-hmm.
The fact it gives them the freedom to write characters in and to choose how they want to portray certain, like it leaves them open for character development, because you don't really get a lot of character development in the appendices or in the second age. You just get like they were like this and then they were like this, but you don't really get the in between stuff. So
Yeah.
seeing like Elrond and Galadriel develop and who they become with good writing, as long as it feels like Tolkien, like that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see those stories fleshed out in a very complex way, because Elrond and I think Galadriel are two really good characters to focus on because they're not main characters of the Lord of the Rings, but they're very prominent characters within that world. In the Second Age, they're both very active. They're both very active in establishing their realms, and they're making their very ambitious. And like I would love to see Elrond as just a badass warrior before he becomes all stoic and like doesn't want to fight anybody, and he's just like, I'm ready to retire, like
Yeah.
I'm this
Yeah.
high elf king. So I think I would love to see him like just not be that yet, and just like just going headfirst into battle, very skilled, almost getting himself killed maybe, because he's being too irrational or rash. Like that's what I'm excited for. Is
I
like that is like those like complex story developments of those two characters.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much of the story of the character development on like on a pedestal next to Tolkien, like as like that as my metric, because honestly, like character development was not his strong suit, and Aragorn's like the number one example of that, where you basically have zero character development across 3 books for Aragorn, and
Yeah, one
Peter
yeah in the
Jackson's
books
version of that
he's
is so much better. So
yeah
I'm honestly fine.
cool.
I just again, I don't want that character development to default to this, to this
Hmm.
super predictable, like
Yeah,
Joseph Campbell bullshit where, that's just like worn out by now, you
yeah,
know. So
yeah.
it'd
And
be nice
I
to
know,
see
I don't know.
those
They got
developmental
5 seasons.
arcs from one
They got
one version to
yeah.
another character, another version of that character done in a
Mhm.
far more interesting and refreshing way.
Yeah, I mean they've got 5 seasons and they've got
They
two
got plenty
thousand
of
years
time.
to play with. So
Yeah, right.
like that it'll be cool to see to see some big character moments. And it's what the cool thing about the show taking place in Second Age and was
Hmm.
having so much 2,000 to 1,500 years to cover is that we're going to be introduced to characters in season one that are going to be dead by season two because they just don't live that long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or by season three, like they're just gonna die of natural causes. So you can have people that have these really great.
Yeah,
You can have people that have really great
that's
fulfilling
true.
story. They have really great fulfilling story arcs,
Hmm.
and they don't just get killed off like a Game of Thrones style. They just die off naturally because they they're not around anymore. They don't live to be 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
They only have 100 years of life, or 80 years, or 200 years, whatever. Or the Numenorians are blessed with long life. So
Yeah.
maybe they live for 250 years, but they eventually they just die off, and they have a great story ending, and they can get a satisfaction of having a good story. And then you have some characters that die way too early, and you're like, dang, I can't believe that character died.
That
Especially
alone, I
characters,
think, is going to take some of the pressure off, as far as plot development's concerned. It's like, oh, we
yeah,
don't
they're not.
have to keep this guy around, so we don't have to,
Well,
like,
yeah.
stranglehold the long-lived characters'
Well,
stories
the thing is
for
too
the
is like
sake of it, or...
with the Elven characters, especially like this new guy they're introducing,
Hmm.
Arandir or whatever his name is. They have so much time to flesh out their story arcs, thousands of years to develop them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you could literally get like totally different by the
Well,
character you've seen.
we only have
Like,
so much time on film, right?
well, I mean, you have 5 seasons, right? So I mean, I think it'll be cool to look back and see season one, what these like elven characters are like, and then season five to see what they're like. Like they could be totally different people. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like one thing about like Game of Thrones is like you kind of know there's a couple characters that really develop, right? Tyrion and all that stuff. But like Jon Snow, like what kind of character he is from the very beginning. Like what he is the quintessential good guy. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
you know what his arc is, right?
That's
Same
why he gets
with the
shafted
with
in the end, and it's
yeah,
hilarious.
I know. Same. I don't want to talk about it. Same with Daenerys Targaryen, right? You know who she is by she's a psychopath. Like you see that from ground one. So like I think with this you have the chance to see like these really polar opposites, hyper developed characters.
Hmm.
Because they have to eventually we know where they lead to. So we
Yeah.
know they have to get to this point. Um, but how they get there is gonna be interesting. But
Yeah. It's going to be like a real sweet alley-oop,
yeah, for sure.
you
But
know?
all right, man. I've got to get out.
Yep.
I gotta. But
Hey, enjoy
dude,
enjoy your dinner party and whatnot.
thank you, sir. Thank
Next
you,
week
sir.
we should incorporate some gameplay of something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do a
for
little
sure.
hang sesh. All right.
Yeah, yeah, I'm down.
Cool. Thanks to Kate
Um,
Cron for coming by.
yeah, man, appreciate it. Thanks everybody to come by, like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell
Don't
your
do any of
grandkids.
that. Don't do any of that.
Yeah, dislike and unsubscribe.
Just like
Subscribe and then unsubscribe.
delete it from your history. All right. Don't let your
Hmm.
wife see it. It's the
Yeah,
worst.
you have to. You're only allowed to watch our stream in incognito mode.
Yeah. There
So
you
that's the only way you can watch the stream.
go. All right. Well, thanks a
All
lot,
right, man.
and I'll
Yep.
catch